Welcome to a Pat Mayo Experience Mini. If you want the full version of the complete fight-by-fight UFC Japan DraftKings breakdown, go to the Pat Mayo Experience audio feed on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, or Audio Boom for the whole hour-long breakdown. This is just going to be the quick picks, the guys that you need to get into your lineup at the top and at the bottom to get yourself a nice team this week. Joining me in the studio from the Fight Network, it's Cody Saftic, who's also on that breakdown show.
Yes, good times, and I suggest that you go have it, listen to it, because Pat, if they would have done that last week, they would have had Daniel Spitz, they would have had Uriah Hall.
And not Hamilton.
I cannot tell you I told you so about Hall, because that was almost stopped in the first round and could have very easily gone the other way, but all the same, good value, and hey, let's find some more good value, right?
All right, so at the top this week, you've been telling me that you can jam in basically anyone that you want, but that's not necessarily what you need to do. So is the most expensive fighter the best play?
No, not necessarily. I mean, when you're looking at Ovince Preux, I think a lot of people are going to be quick to say, listen, he's twice the size of Yushin Okami, he's got 5 rounds to deal with, and whereas a lot of people might consider a guy like OSP maybe a bit of a tentative fighter, he's got a lot of big finishes on his record. I mean, even just knocking out a guy like Shogun, who he was supposed to rematch in the slot, 38 seconds. Now you're getting a guy taking the fight on a week's notice. He's moving up from 170 pounds to 205 pounds and taking a guy that's probably going to weigh around 220, 225 pounds come actual fight night. But $9,500, it's a big price tag. If you can afford him, a lot of people are going to think he's so expensive, he's going to get the first round finish. I can afford him. I want the first round finish. Not necessarily the case, and I do see where you can save some money further down the list and still get that finish that you're looking for.
All right, so who is the top end guy to pay for?
You're probably going to have to go with Dun Kim, $9,100. No, not that Dun Kim. It's actually Maestro Dun Kim, but all the same, that might just be just as good here. He's got a judo black belt, as I guess everybody named Dun Kim seems to have, but he relies a lot on his striking, forward aggression, getting in the pocket. He's got a pretty good chin on him. He wings punches, and it's not so much what Dun Kim does well, so much as what Takanori Gomi, his opponent, does not do well, and that's pretty much everything at this point. I mean, he's been fighting for well over a decade. The prime of his career was back in 2007. It is currently 2017, but you're going to have to remind him of that because he's been knocked out in 3 of his last 4 fights, overall finished in 4 of his last 4 fights, all by first round finish. Now, most guys, they wouldn't be in the UFC still. Why would the UFC have any use for a guy like that? But he's Takanori Gomi. He's the Fireball Kid. He used to be a big legend. But times have changed. Things have faded. Dun Kim, he's not a world beater, but this is not a world-class opponent. So he probably does what every other Takanori Gomi opponent has done over the last number of years, and that's get him down and that's finish him. And even if we think, well, this might just be a stand-up battle, Gomi's got power. He does. We have to factor that in. We have to take that into consideration. But his chin's not even what it used to be either. If he gets stunned and he goes down, it's over for him. If he gets cleanly taken down, it's over for him. And if it's a battle of who can, output the other guy, this guy's not known for his punch output. So I have to go with Dun Kim, $9,100. I think it's a fair play.
All right, anyone else at the top?
At the top, yes, but also no. I mean, Gokcen Sake, $8,600. $8,600 is like a mid-price guy, and I think he's must-have. If you're playing a GPP, certainly Gokcen Sake, you have to have. But this is a nice situation where he's actually 0-1 as a professional MMA fighter, Pat. So most people are going to look at that and say, okay, making his UFC debut, taking on a guy that's experienced in the UFC and has got some finishing power, and quite frankly, he's a former pro kickboxer whose loss is only outing in MMA. That might cause people to not take him. And I will be one of those people that take him and hopefully have lower ownership on him as a result. But listen, I mean, he's complete dynamite. He seems to be very short for 205 pounds. It does not hinder him. I mean, Mike Tyson was pretty short as a heavyweight, and he can generate a lot of power. If you look at the type of guys that he's been fighting, literally his entire kickboxing career, they're always gigantic. I mean, he's fought the who's of heavyweight kickboxers, and a lot of these guys that come from the Netherlands, especially kickboxers from the Netherlands, are very, very tall. He's fought guys like Daniel Guida out of Romania, who's very, very tall, and he's had very, very, very good success against these guys. And that's a 10-ounce gloves on. Give him 4-ounce gloves and give him an extremely hittable opponent like Henrique da Silva. I think it's a recipe for knockout, probably a recipe for knockout quickly. And if you want any more proof of that, Henrique's last fight, he took on Ion Cutelaba, who was just a very wild, big puncher, but very wild, very young, very green in his career. He got knocked out in under 30 seconds. Now he's taking on a former world champion in the sport of kickboxing. I think he just has recipe disaster written all over it if you're a Henrique fan. But if you're a Sake fan and you have Sake, I think this is a must-have play.
All right, so do we need to go scumming down in the low $7,000 area to fill out our teams, or do you just want to do that anyway?
Yeah, you know, oftentimes people want to either make multiple lineups, so it helps to either scum down. And if you, let's say you say, okay, Cody, I agree with you. I like Gokcen Sake. I like Dunyoung Kim too, but I do also like OSP. Well, now we need to save some money, Pat. Also, the lower end guys, the guys that are $7,200, $7,300. Look at last week with Spitz and Hall. For the most part, not very highly owned, right? Because they're big underdogs. So if I'm looking at this card and I want to save some money, I have 3 viable options. Orlando D against Teruto Ishihara. I mean, this guy's the son of a former world champion pro boxer. He throws heavies. He could go out there. He could bring him into deep waters. He could tire him out. But the 2 guys I actually like more than that. One of them is Daichi Abe, $7,800. I think this is another guy that's earmarked for a finish. I mean, Hungyu Lim is a slight favorite. People are kind of favoring him, but he's very wild, he's very reckless, and he's coming off a long layoff. He just hasn't fought in a long time. So, I mean, he's going to have some ring rust that's inadvertently on him. Also, the way he fights is get in the pocket, brawl with you, and make it a dirty fight. But he tried to do that in his last fight, and he got KO'd. And that really does change a guy. Because now you think, well, do I want to do the same plan that I did last time and get knocked out? No, I'm going to change my game. Changing your game oftentimes doesn't yield results. He got to where he was with his brawling style. He leaves nothing left in the gas tank and he goes after you. But now he's worried about his cardio. He's worried about game planning. He's worried about using his reach and his jab. That's not the way this guy fights. Daichi Abe is undefeated. He's 25 years old. He's a judo black belt, but also he's a guy that's been doing kickboxing for 10 years. He's very sharp. And guys either have punching power or they don't. You could be a fine striker. You could be the best striker, but maybe you just don't have the punching power. Giorgio Petrosian, this guy's literally pound for pound one of the greatest kickboxers I've ever seen. Just no punching power. You see it in boxing times too. You're slick. A Floyd Mayweather, you're slick, no punching power. Daichi Abe might not be the greatest striker, but he has punching power. If he touches you, it does damage. And we've seen with Mike Perry, who's another guy that just simply has brute power. When he touched Hungyu Lim, Lim went down. Lim got back up. He tasted it again. He went back down. I think the same thing happens here with Abe. Sign me up for Abe, $7,800. And finally, this one's a punt if you're ever going to see one. But Ulka Sasaki, $7,000. I'm not crazy. I don't think he's going to get a finish.
How many people are named Sasaki on this card?
Well, I mean, we have a card in Japan, Pat. and it's Sake, Gokcen Sake, and this is Ulka Sasaki. But I like him too. I mean, once again, $7,000. I don't see him getting a knockout. I really do. Him getting a submission, don't see it happening. But he can go out there. He can hustle a guy like Formiga, and he can get the upset. Formiga is $9,200. So a lot of guys are looking at that as a high-end play. A guy that you might want to have. And hey, who knows? He is the better grappler, and he could finish in the first round. But I think he's going to get tired here. I think Ulka Sasaki is going to take him into deeper waters, and that's going to prove very pivotal. I mean, if you just look at Formiga, right? I'll try to make this quick for you. But if you just look at Formiga, he's had 9 fights in the UFC. 6 of them in his native Brazil. So now you're taking him out of Brazil and you're traveling him to Japan. And this is a guy that traditionally has bad cardio. He wins round 1, he wins round 2, he fades in round 3. You can look at countless examples. You could look at guys like Chris Carriasso. You could look at his fight against Wilson Hayes. You could look at his last fight against Ray Borg. You could look at literally every fight he's ever had outside of the Dustin Ortiz fight that's gone to the 3rd round. He has lost the 3rd round based on the fact that he gets tired. Sasaki's got a good game plan. He's got good tactics. He's a good grappler. If he can survive the grappling exchanges early, he can take him into deeper waters in front of a hometown crowd when you've got this guy traveling all the way from Brazil and you're, we've got 5-6 inches in the height department on him. Just make him work. Make him carry that weight. And you can end up on his guard, fend off submissions, add a little bit of ground and pound for safe measure, get the win. And if he simply just gets the win for $7,000, I will be okay because I can afford all the other pieces I want.
Cody Saftic. Check him out on Twitter, at CJ Saftic, and on the Pat Mayo Experience Fight Breakdown. We got a contest to name the show now.
Yeah, so hopefully you got good ideas because I'm kind of scratching my... I came up with Bookie Beatdown. I was like, this is a great name. But we're not exactly just beating the bookie down anymore. We're also trying to beat down Daily Fantasy, Pat. So the name's just a little, old, right?
Yeah, we need to update.
Yeah, hey, you know what? Sometimes change is good. But hopefully not too much of a change from last week because last week was hot fire. Let's keep the hot fire rolling here.
So on Twitter, at CJ Saftic, if you check out the Pat Mayo Experience, you can find Cody's full fight-by-fight breakdown with Paul Shaughnessy up there as well, and they will get more in-depth to why you want all these picks in every single fight. So much longer than this, but this is the quick picks. Hope you filled out your lineups properly. And again, you can subscribe to the Pat Mayo Experience audio versions on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, or Audio Boom. I'm Pat Mayo. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.